Hey everybody, I hope you are doing well. I'm Afefe with Touch by Tarot and Beyond, and I am on here to do a political reading for you all today. Again, so many things happening like on a daily basis, and so what Spirit pinged me to talk about today is a couple of developments that are recent. One having to do with apparently now there are efforts by the Biden administration and other U.S. officials across the board to implement a policy to have asylum for Palestinians who have relatives here in the United States. This comes especially, I think, as being, there's a lot of momentum because the Biden administration, is under tremendous pressure to continue to address this issue. It is college campuses. We've all witnessed so much of that. And I want to look a little more into that later, but Spirit is leading me down a different path for today's reading. But just mentioning that because, there are so many reasons. This being an election year, sure, but outside of that, it's not just about pandering for votes. It's about really, the role that the United States is going to play and should play in this matter to get this ceasefire, to help assist to get the ceasefire between Israel and Gaza or Hamas. This is especially important, this talk now of asylum for Palestinians with relatives here, because from what I understand, Netanyahu, who has really just gone off the bend, is saying they're going into Rafah, no matter what. Ceasefire, no ceasefire. There are talks apparently now. There, borderline. Blinken's been over there, trying to broker a deal with, in talks in Egypt with Egyptian leaders as mediators in this situation. But no matter what, he's saying, no, Netanyahu is saying Israel's going into Rafah because they want to, they think that's where so many of the Hamas, you know, terrorists have taken up residence or taken up hiding. But in addition to that, we have estimates are over a million, well over a million Palestinians who fled Gaza and are now in Rafah in that section. So here we go again with the potential for tremendous civilian casualties, right? So I think that's part of what the U.S. is trying to do is come up with certain solutions pending the ceasefire deal. But what can the United States do to try and help, Palestinians who are clearly their lives are in danger? And granted, we all know that won't even, should that operation go into effect and policies be implemented to actually extract Palestinians and get them to the United States, those who have relatives here, that's still going to be a small percentage. But Spirit just said, let's take a look at that because we need something. We need, even if these are incremental changes, here comes the tower straight out the deck. Thank you, Spirit. And that's a breakthrough. I feel that, clearly this is an image that would represent war in general and all the lives that have been lost. Well over, I've been seeing the figure 34,000 now for about the past 3 weeks. Are we really, I think we're not hearing the numbers anymore. That's what Spirit is telling me. The guides are telling me. We're not even hearing the numbers anymore because that 34, there's no way that that's holding steady for at least the past 3 weeks. I've been seeing that same figure. We're not getting the latest numbers. But that said, will that go into effect? And we've got the Page of Cups, so that's a desire to and the Fool. Okay, I like that. Page of Cups and the Fool. A new approach, because that's really what's happening is the U.S. has got to come up with some other things. We know that the international community is looking at charging Israel or Netanyahu, the IDF, with war crimes, actual straight up war crimes. Who knows where that's going? It seems like for everything that we hear about the possibility of what could happen to address Netanyahu's approach to this is one step forward, two steps back. But again, back to the asylum question. Yes, but I'll tell you what, it's not going to be a really satisfactory answer, even though safety and saving lives is an issue. Five of Cups, for me, the guys are saying this is not a solution for Palestinians who would even take advantage of that asylum just to survive, because the bottom line is, it's not, when people get asylum here, very often it's to put them on track for staying here and the path to U.S. citizenship, and that's not the point. They want their land. They deserve to have their land. They deserve to have peace in their land. So there's a lot of disappointment around it, even if Hierophant, even if it takes goes into effect and takes shape. So yes, I am seeing this as, this is a governmental structure. Hierophant represents, very, in a faith context, it can represent institutions like the church, etc., but also government. And I think this is the government's, the U.S. government's attempt to say, listen, we are going to do something, even if what we do in terms of sheer numbers is not that large. We're still going to do something. So yes, I do see the asylum, this policy around asylum starting to take effect. But once again, what did I just say a moment ago? One step forward, two steps back. We have the hangman. How to do that, especially if, again, so many Palestinians have fled to Rafah. So if, Netanyahu follows through with his promise to go ahead and launch and go into that region, then it becomes, logistically, politically, otherwise, how do those mechanisms get put in place to actually extract the Palestinians who have relatives here and get them to the United States safely? So I do see, with that fool, I do see this coming. I think that there is going to be some sort of asylum offered. But it is going to be a really tough program to implement, and Netanyahu is going to resist it, because he and Biden are having a really rough go. There is no love lost between the two of them at this point, and the fact that the U.S. would step in and show itself and really begin to operate more strongly as a world leader in this matter, Netanyahu's going to try and do something to absolutely fly in the face of that. And it could even, two of swords, I'm getting that it could even escalate his determination to ratchet up the war in and go into Rafah. Dag it. But there will be people who will come here. Spirit, am I seeing that, to close this portion out? There will be asylum for Palestinians in the United States. Yes, 8 of Wands. Okay, so let's take a collective breath on that one. There will be that asylum is going to go through. It is still going to take some time. Again, everything is just so slow motion. And I guess because there are so many factors in place, but we will have asylum here. The notion of Netanyahu is determined to go into Rafah with or without a ceasefire, because he sees as, he's determined to kill, all members of Hamas. We'll see what happens with that. But yes, asylum is on its way. Another issue there, talking about safety and talking about saving lives. Wow, my heart is so moved. I did a video a while ago when the 7 people were killed with the World Kitchen, Jose Andres' group, the World Food Kitchen. And he's made an announcement this week that they are going back in, that they are going to begin to resume operations there. What is really interesting is he did a wonderful piece. If I can find it, I will. I might do a link to it down in the description box. Jose Andres did a very powerful piece this week, opinion piece in the Washington Post, where he talks about going back into, making the decision, really tough a decision. He just did a eulogy for those 7 people who were killed, by the Israeli forces in Gaza. Just trying to do the right thing, trying to help people. I did not know, you all, that Jose Andres is a mover and shaker in Washington. I did not realize that that was basically his base of operations. He's been a Washington, power player now for many, many years. His restaurants there, but that is sort of home place. From what I understand, he and his wife live in Bethesda, Maryland. One of that whole enclave around the Washington D.C. area. So he is known. He is a power player. And, this sort of, there's been some talk, Biden versus Jose Andres, because Jose Andres has been very, very vocal about the need to help Palestinians. He's been very critical of the bridge, the water, the port that the U.S. announced that they would build to try, instead of doing these airdrops that were disastrous and continue to be disastrous. That they needed to be able to get this in by land, and with all of the blockages going through, getting access through by land because of Israel's stuff. The U.S. said, okay, we will build a port. We're going to come in and we're going to build a port. Well, Jose Andres is saying, okay, what's the holdup? Like, why isn't there more being done? Why isn't this, why aren't we moving along on this? Because that was announced what now? Oh, well over a month ago, maybe 6 weeks, 2 months ago. So Andreas has come out very vocal and not directly, up, at Biden, but his stance in saying something should be done. The people deserve more. They deserve safety. This idea that they are, or not idea, the reality that they are, on it, bordering on and entering into a famine situation. So that had a lot to do with Andreas's decision to go back into the region, despite what happened with his people. But here's what's really interesting. This is him, King of Swords. He's a go-getter. He is about it. He's not, that Spanish blood. He is absolutely determined that nothing is going to stop him. He will not allow it. What happened, even, in the face of those people who were killed with his organization. But here's what's very interesting as well. What he's calling for is part of his implementation of his services is being able to, with the World Food Kitchen, is being able to utilize local people to deliver the goods. So they do a lot of the getting the goods into the area, getting the food into the areas. But then he even said, this is about Palestinians for Palestinians. And that there have been reports that for those people who are involved with his organization, the World Food Kitchen, Palestinians, that they have been strip searched, that they have been detained, that they have been, really, really horribly treated by Israeli forces, although ostensibly the World Food Kitchen has Israel's consent, Netanyahu's consent to deliver this food, as and deliver aid to people in this area. So there's a little something there, and Andreas is calling it out. And apparently, Biden is not too pleased with that. Because it also adds the pressure on him to address it. But guess what? Here, I got the magician for this guy. Like, he's really, really amazing, Jose Andres. Yeah, he's somebody who's saying, look, this is what's going to happen. And I will speak my piece, and I will tell the truth as I see it and as my people are showing me on the ground is happening. But I also am asking whether this is going to whether there will be more safety and more protections in place, because there have been, whether you want to call it conspiracy theories or otherwise, there was the idea that one of the reasons that the people with the World Food Kitchen were killed in that bombing was due to the use of AI among the IDF and Israeli intelligence forces, that they were relying on AI, that they were relying on faulty systems that were not adequately identifying people who, apparently every move that they make, that the World Food Kitchen makes, these things are communicated. They are planned out very, very strategically and carefully, and yet, yeah, he feels an obligation to the people who gave their lives. Six of Cups. That's another reason. He feels that this is that the people who gave their lives in an effort to help others, that they would have wanted this to continue. And thank you, Spirit, and I'm getting a confirmation of that as well, that they would not have wanted this organization, this powerful organization, World Food Kitchen, to back down despite the sacrifice of their lives. If anything, to take that as the sacrifice of their lives, giving more momentum for them to continue to go into the region and to feed people who are facing starvation. We have the Ten of Pentacles. Okay, so yes, I do think that there will be a lot more care. I do think that given to the safety of those people who are trying to deliver the aid, including the Palestinians who are working with the aid organization. And I also think there's going to be Three of Wands, exactly. There's going to be more, how do I say, I'm getting it, more, more oversight by countries other than just the United States, because other countries are chipping in, other factions are chipping in to make sure that people are receiving this aid. And so there's going to be more oversight and definitely more eyes on the IDF in terms of not interfering with and giving protection and to people. Yes, Three of Cups. So that food is going in. I believe it's already started. But yes, to the point of protection so that we don't have another horrible, horrible incident like what happened with those 7 workers. Those protections are being put in place. And I do believe that based on what happened, I'm seeing Spirit is saying Andreas is going to be vocal through all stages of this. We knew, it was no secret clearly that his organization was offering aid and assistance in the area, but it was after the killing of those 7 people that now we're going to hear, on a more regular basis and in a more international context, we're going to hear more about what is happening with his organization, with his ability to provide aid to people uninterrupted. And I'm sorry, I held that up like you could see that's the Knight of Wands. Movement, determination, and communication. That there will be, because we recognize that, and world leaders recognize that there can't be a repeat of that. God forbid, there absolutely cannot be a repeat of that. And so the courage that the workers are exhibiting to be willing to continue to do this, and to furnish this aid, the fundraising that will continue to this organization, I'm getting a sense that has shot up, because as he is determined, as Andreas is determined to do this, it is going to prompt more organizations to get involved and support the effort. But again, back to this little ticky-tacky that I'm sensing between he and Biden, because Biden is so, he's got it coming from so many different directions in terms of how to address this and how to implement whatever, even if it is incremental changes like offering asylum, like sending Blinken over, working more closely with Egyptian leaders, other leaders in the Mideast who are open to helping to negotiate a ceasefire. So he's got all of that going on the international and national stage. And I think there's a certain degree of let me handle this that Biden is feeling. Let me do this. Yes, we want you to furnish the aid, but don't try to become a mouthpiece for this to the extent that it can appear that we're not doing our due share on the end of the U.S. government. Knight of Pentacles. Yeah, it's the slowness of it that's really, and the 7 of Pentacles. That's it. It's not a deep and abiding risk, and temperance. Okay, thank you. It's not that Joe Biden is running hot under the collar for what Jose Andreas is doing. How could he? Of course he's going to support aid. Of course he's going to support the mission of the World Food Kitchen. But I think that on the political spectrum, he's sort of saying he doesn't want to see Andreas reach such a visible presence on this topic and on this issue in a political sense, because he feels like it will detract and distract from what he's trying to implement and his administration continues to try and implement. So we'll see how that continues to go. And finally, you all, I wanted to wrap up today with a look at U.S. elections. Are they going to be safe? Interestingly enough, I found out that I read that there is group of center-right Republicans who have begun to coalesce around the country, starting in Georgia. There's the Georgia CEO to the Secretary of State. His name is Gabriel Sterling. He has apparently, based on, we know how much got started with that call to Brad Raffensperger, right? So he is working apparently through Johns Hopkins University, has a right-leaning organization. It's called the SNF Angora Institute at Johns Hopkins University. But part of what this this organization is dedicated to doing is beginning, get it together now and start organizing now. How can the safety of elections officials be guaranteed even, and definitely be bolstered as we approach the elections. We've already heard Trump come out this week and say he's making no promises to support and fall in line with the outcome of the election. And we all know what that means. We've seen, Jan 6, here we go. So there's a real need. And what's interesting is, while I'm sure I haven't heard a lot about it, maybe you have, and if you have, drop a comment about the DNC or Democratic efforts to put some mechanisms, some real tracking and security mechanisms in place to help election officials and even, on down the line, election workers, poll workers as we approach this. So I want to take a look and see, but again, what's interesting is sort of this sort of a bipartisan approach Spirit is saying to this, that yes, you would expect the DNC and the Democratic Party to implement some things because they already know what's coming. We see what's coming, and perhaps there would be more of a reluctance to do that for Trump supporters, right? They want it to be chaotic and willy-nilly and be able to, jump up and down and point fingers and say, here, the election was fake, the election was stolen. They're amping up and ratcheting up for that again. But so the idea that we have this right-leaning organization and GOP state leaders around the country, apparently, who are starting to have meetings and build a coalition to try and decide, especially in the red states, how can we make sure that our secretaries of state on down the line to our poll workers are safe. I'm going to take a look at that and see if that's going to gain some momentum. I have the Nine of Swords. That's the concern behind it. King of Swords is that Gabriel Sterling as sort of the one who launched this? Yes, Six of Swords. So I'm looking at Gabriel Sterling as a leader trying to get out in front of this and working with other state leaders to try and implement something that ties this all together, where there are, and of course that means they're going to have to work with the federal government. This can't just be done at the state level. They're going to have to work with the federal government as well. And just as I said that, I got the Sun. So there will be, there's going to have to be some tie-in from the federal government and perhaps even just some assurances as to protection. The Three of Swords, that's Jan 6. That's the momentum. Listen, we all saw what happened. We all know that this is not about conspiracy theories and the what ifs and maybe could happen. This is about the reality of a threat, of a very real threat. So yes, this organization is going to grow. The Emperor ain't gonna like it. Let me make sure. I've always, when I do political readings, I've gotten accustomed to Trump coming up as the Emperor, but let me just make sure that's who I'm looking at. Is this him? No. Oh, okay. This is Biden, King of Cups. He's a Scorpio. So yes, this is Biden as coming as the Emperor, coming as the leader of the president and second term president. Let's just go ahead and put that out there. So yes, they have his backing 100%, which means I do see perhaps some crossover between Democratic leaders perhaps even working with or alongside these GOP leaders across the states. And I have the high priestess. So there's a degree to which we are not going to hear everything about this because they don't want to tip their hand. For those who are, for the Steve Bannons of the world and those who would work behind the scenes to help create the chaos and to help perhaps foster another sense of the election being stolen when and if Joe Biden wins again. So they're not going to tip their hand about everything. And there's the magician. Exactly. So they're working. They're working behind the scenes. A lot of this will be done to be effective, but without the hangman. The hangman meaning. I think this is consideration of all sides, but also a lot of this is still in the beginning stages, and there's not a lot of time. We have 6 months, so a lot of this is still in the beginning stages, and it's really about how to best implement. There has to be law enforcement as well as state leaders, legislatures, etc. And this could even be, thank you, Spirit, Two of Cups. I'm thinking this is going to be a partnership across political divides. But I also think this is going to be somehow legislated to put something in place on the books so that people will face prosecution, that people will know that they face prosecution. And we've seen a lot of that, of course, through the trials that have been held for the Jan 6ers, those who said he would set free. But yes, Three of Wands. This is a coalition. This is a coalition across parties. And the very idea, and a Six of Wands that is going to build momentum. And yes, there will be protections put in place, you all. And it's going to be both at the state level, but I do see the feds coming into it, maybe the Department of Justice or something, adding, bolstering, saying we have your back, even if they're not formally involved, but there's an understanding with that high priestess that we got. Again, there are going to be certain things that are not publicized or that are not absolutely put out there for us to understand the mechanisms that are being put in place to ensure safety, because again, they don't want to tip their hand in order to maintain the safety of that. All right, you all. And I will close this out by saying, I don't know who, if anyone, was convinced or impressed by Hope Hicks, the little tearjerker moment during her testimony in Trump's trial. There were so many different accounts, and unfortunately, man, could we only see that trial take place if it were televised. But as it is, we're getting a lot of minute by minute coverage from a number of outlets and people. But so supposedly, there were a lot of people who agreed that she looked nervous going on to this the witness stand. But that she was also very composed in certain ways. She was nervous. I mean, think about it, being in her position. But that she was pretty composed while the prosecution led in the questioning. But then all of a sudden, when the defense comes up, she just falls apart and has a moment and needs to excuse herself and needs to go somewhere with a tissue and collect herself. Like, I don't know about all that. It almost seemed as if it were for effect, that she understood that the testimony she was giving, but she had already testified, she had already been questioned by the prosecution. So if you're feeling so bad about, what you're about to say in regards to Trump, and there have been some comments that basically her testimony wasn't even that damaging because she leaned it more toward, we know part of this dynamic is between the defense and the prosecution is, defense wants to say, listen, he did what he did, he said what he said, and he covered it up because he made these, because he was trying to protect Melania. He was trying to protect his family. He was trying to protect his reputation, his son, etc. And, and the prosecution's like, nah, dude, this was about your campaign and you wanted to make sure it wouldn't damage your campaign, point blank, period. But the idea that Hope got up there, I just pulled legal. So the idea that Hope Hicks got up there and had, this emotional moment, it's interesting. It is as if she thought, and she had to get a grip on herself. Go ahead, Spirit. Spirit is speaking to it. She really, and she also felt frustrated. This grip is also speaking. She felt frustrated that she had no choice, that she had to, she had to basically appear. She would have much rather not be put in that position. And she feels like now, in hindsight, she feels like she's feeling a little responsibility, that had she only been able to be a little more persuasive with him, have negotiated and come together. Because of the relationship that she once had with Trump, there's a part of her in going through this process that has questioned what could she have done better. They talked about her communications right after the Access Hollywood tape, that in one of the emails that they tracked and that she sent to Kellyanne Conway in the wake of this breaking news of the Access Hollywood video and tape, was deny, quote unquote. This was in an email that Hope Hicks wrote to Kellyanne Conway. Deny. There's a part, it is her ego. And there's a part that she feels she could have or should have played to better protect him. She does not see him as, this is, what's her name, Cassidy Hutchinson or whatever. She does not see Trump. She still is loyal. Bottom line. She's still loyal. And she said what she said, and she did what she had to do because she had no choice. That's what those tears were about. She's still loyal. And somehow, some way, I'm getting a ping that she had some feelings around him. Not intimating. This video is for entertainment purposes only. I'm not intimating that anything happened, but I do think that she had a genuine allegiance to him, and she felt her relationship with him not only elevated her, but gave her life substance and context. Like, she bought in 150% to this man. And that's what those tears were about. All right. They were really tears for herself. And what she felt like she's lost in relation to him. All right. And she knows it's gone. That's over with, right? Never come again. All right, you all. I hope that was helpful. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave me some comments and let me know your thoughts on this. And I'll talk to you again real soon. Take care.